I was 17 when tragedy slammed into my world. My parents, my best friends, died in a freeway accident during a snowstorm. I went from planning for prom to identifying bodies at a morgue. The house they left behind was modest but full of memories, the pencil marks of my height on the doorway, my mother's rose-scented kitchen, my father's workshop that smelled like old wood. I thought I'd get to stay there. But life doesn't bend just because you're grieving. My uncle, Richard, my father's older brother, arrived the same day the will was read. He barely said sorry. Instead, he hovered behind me as the lawyer explained that the house, savings, and insurance were all left to me, but needed an adult custodian until I turned 18. Richard volunteered. At that moment, I was relieved. He hugged me. Told me he'd protect me. Said he'd always loved my father. I believed him. What a mistake. Within a month of moving in, Richard changed. He sold my father's tools, my mother's jewelry, claiming we needed money. Then, without warning, he announced he was renovating the house. I'd have to stay elsewhere temporarily. I asked, where? He tossed me a backpack and said, "You're almost 18. Figure it out." Just like that. He kicked me out of my own home. I slept in shelters, on friends' sofas, and sometimes in my school's library until a janitor shooed me away. I showered in the gym locker room at school and ate cheap cafeteria meals. Every night, I'd walk by my family home. The lights were warm, laughter inside, Richard and his girlfriend lounging on my mother's couch. Sometimes he'd look out the window and smirk. The day I turned 18, I came to reclaim my house. Richard had already beaten me to it. He had falsified papers and sold the house, my parents' house, behind my back. The money? Gone. The police said the case was complicated. Translation: I was out of luck. That day, standing on the sidewalk where I played hopscotch as a kid, I made a promise to myself. I will rise. I will rebuild. And one day, Richard will pay. I worked 3 jobs. I studied in the corners of a 24-hour cafe, surviving on free refills. My grades earned me a scholarship to a community college, then another that transferred me to the University of Colorado. I rented a tiny apartment with peeling walls and noisy pipes. But I worked hard. I graduated with a degree in marketing and got hired by a Denver tech company. Within a year, my campaigns raised profits 40%. By 25, I was head of digital strategy. At 28, I launched my own firm. At 30, I bought a house. Not just any house. A beautiful 3-story craftsman home overlooking the mountains, with a garden my mother would have loved. For the first time in my adult life, I felt safe. And then he showed up. It was a rainy evening. I was reviewing client pitches when my doorbell rang. I opened it, and froze. Standing on my porch was Richard. But he wasn't the smug man I remembered. His hair was grayer, his clothes wrinkled, his face hollow. His eyes darted around as if he were expecting someone to shove him off the property. "Elena," he whispered. "Thank God. I've been looking for you for months." I said nothing. He continued, I lost everything. My wife left me. I got scammed. I have no job, no money, nowhere to stay. Someone told me you lived here." He offered a broken smile. "Family helps family, right?" I felt something cold move through me. He didn't recognize the house wasn't just a house. It was an opportunity. My opportunity. I opened the door wider. His eyes lit with hope. Then I said, "Leave your shoes outside." He blinked. Of course, of course." He stepped inside, dripping rainwater on the floor. I closed the door behind him with a soft click. For the first week, I treated Richard like a guest. I gave him a guest room. Cooked meals. Smiled politely. He thought I'd forgiven him. He even had the audacity to say, "I always knew you'd land on your feet. Proud of you, kiddo." I almost laughed. Then, slowly, I began tightening the screws. First, I made house rules: no smoking, no drinking, no TV after 8 p.m., no guests, no entering certain rooms, mandatory chores. He complained. I told him, my house, my rules. Or leave. He shut up. Then I gave him a list of tasks: cleaning gutters, mowing lawns, repainting walls, scrubbing floors. Every time he did one thing wrong, I added more. He was exhausted. I wasn't finished. I invited neighbors over. Introduced Richard as my handyman. His face burned with humiliation. I recorded him complaining and whining, sent it to a cousin he once insulted at a reunion. Soon, everyone in the family knew Richard was living in my house, doing chores for free. His pride shattered. But my revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. After 2 months of him living with me, walking on eggshells, scrubbing floors, and barely sleeping, I called him into the living room. He sat down cautiously. Is something wrong? I placed a printed document in front of him. He read it. His face went pale. It was an eviction notice. Why, you can't be serious, he stammered. Oh, I'm very serious, I said coldly. You have 2 days. Elena, where will I go? I'll be homeless. I leaned forward. You made me homeless at 17. I slept in classrooms. In alleys. In shelters. You watched me struggle and did nothing. His eyes filled with tears. I was stupid, he whispered. Please, please don't do this. I stood up. You didn't think about where I'd sleep. I'm not thinking about where you'll sleep. He fell to his knees. Elena, I'm your family. I stepped back. You lost the right to call yourself that a long time ago. He grabbed my hand. I pulled it away. Get out, Richard. At noon the next day, I watched him walk down the street with a plastic bag of clothes, just like the plastic bag he once threw at me. The circle was complete. 2 months later, I learned from a neighbor that Richard had moved into a rundown roadside motel. Sometimes he worked as a janitor. Sometimes he begged on the sidewalk. But I felt nothing. Not joy. Not guilt. Just closure. I visited my parents' graves that weekend. Placed roses on their headstones. Mom, Dad, I whispered. I kept my promise. I made it. And I made him pay. The wind brushed my cheek, warm, soft, like a hand. I knew they heard me. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who break you. But healing isn't about forgiveness. Sometimes healing is about remembering your worth, and making those who hurt you understand exactly what they destroyed. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet eviction notice handed to the person who once threw you into the cold. And that. How the man who stole my home ended up begging to live in the house I bought.